Well, I'm Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist, Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. And I'm sure some of you have found yourself in situations where you couldn't understand why there was envy, jealousy, conceit, and opposition to who you were in a situation where you had done no wrong. It could have been at work, it could have been in the family. Families have episodes. It could have been in a relationship. And it's hard. The problem with it is when you're wrongly accused, when you're in a situation that you can't seem to be able to resolve, this will sometimes backfire on the person that's being immature or just trouble. And so we come to Proverbs. Thank you for coming in, viewers. I hope you're enjoying the content. 25 verse 8. 25 and verse 8. And a lot of people say to me, oh, all this religious stuff, this is just wisdom. This is ancient wisdom that Christians and other religions across the world use. These are the Proverbs of Solomon. And, I mean, wisdom's the principal thing. If you can gain wisdom to help yourself and the people around you, why wouldn't you? I hope this brings some wisdom to you today. Do not bring hastily anyone to court. Otherwise, what will you do in the end when the person puts you to shame? Another way of putting it is, do not go out and argue in haste. Otherwise, what will you do in the end when your opponent puts you to shame? Sometimes we get blinded by situations that have upset us without doing the mind work to make sure the way we're acting is going to be legitimized if push comes to shove. A lot of people don't want to find themselves in situations where people are blaming them and all this other stuff. We had a next door neighbor. He was a drug addict. He ended up going to jail. He stabbed someone in the neck, his brother-in-law in the neck. He used to threaten us out here and all this, and we didn't know what to do with him. But when it all come down to it, he was just making a fool of himself. He was in his imaginations. He used to think people hated him. You'd fix things for him and help him one minute, and the next thing you know, he'd think you hated him, and all this fantasy and delusion. And that's why we shouldn't judge people too quickly. We shouldn't, just because something doesn't suit us, aim at somebody with intent. Because when the truth comes out, a lot of the time, if we're not rational in our thinking and we're acting on our emotions, and we just haven't come to a place where we can fairly, unselfishly consider why we are reacting the way we are. See, a lot of our reactions are based on who we are, not what the other person has done. And too many times we find ourselves in situations where we've ended up making ourselves a fool. I've been in situations where people have started a quarrel and it's released a flood. And that flood has cost their mothers relationships and peace and health and reliability and sustainability, care, or because of immaturity. This happens to fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters. They often quarrel. Friends, partners, whatever the case is. The warning is, don't start quarrels for nothing. Don't start quarrels because you're being selfish. Proverbs 18:6 says, a fool's lips bring strife, and his mouth invites a beating. It's not wise to start strife. I can remember buying flowers for one of my girlfriends, and one of the children, the eldest son, he was a golden child, made fun of it. Just made fun of it. And I thought, and she didn't do anything. She didn't say, hang on a sec, or anything. I thought, no, I won't buy you flowers anymore. That's just making a mockery of the gesture. It was none of his business or anything. And I think she had a little laugh along with it for some strange reason, just to feel accepted with this golden child, adult child. I remember, just putting in my bit and cleaning the toilet and the bathroom and things like this. And again, there was this snidey remark, men don't do that or whatever. And I thought, mate, you haven't lived yet. You haven't got a clue. Relationships about reciprocation. By the end of that relationship, the golden child had completely dismantled it from a distance, from afar. And the woman blamed me for his attitude. And I thought, no, you're not. We'll see you later. That was the covert side of the way in which these people work. They don't resolve anything. The first sign that you're going to be in trouble with someone is if there's a situation that needs to be resolved and they just don't resolve it. That's going to be your first red flag in the deeper part of a relationship. People that don't want to resolve things are similar to this. Proverbs 30:33. For as the churning of milk yields butter, and the twisting of the nose draws blood, so the stirring of anger brings strife. And one thing people don't want is strife. But there is this group, they can't help themselves, as you know, and they start strife. They don't know how to... This is very narcissistic when you think about it. Narcissism's about degenerating things that are good. Narcissists are people, just by example, they're not the only ones, that draw you in and then start to collapse everything around you. And they'll have flying monkeys. These are people that are on side with them, that they are emotionally enmeshed with. And these people will work together in a semi-unconscious way to dismantle your confidence in them. When you don't engage that behavior, because they want you to react, they're trying to smear who you are. They're trying to mentally and emotionally and characteristically vandalize who you are. When you don't engage and you just go, look, I haven't got an issue, which reminds me, one of my partners once came and said, I think we've beaten them, talking of her sons. And I thought to myself, I was quite alarmed, because I thought to myself, I don't want to beat anybody. I just want to get along. And it showed me something about her mindset where I thought, it was never about wanting to fight with anybody. It was only about wanting to be in a relationship with you. And I just thought to myself, where has all this come from? Why is all this happening? And this is what can happen to people when they're enmeshed. They get caught up in each other's quarrels and strife. They escalate what the problem is and become out of touch with reality. They start to misrepresent what the actual nature of the relationship is by way of the strife and unresolved taking place behind the scenes. And that's what unresolved will do. It will cause, ultimately, it's going to shame everyone. Because the object of a relationship is give, take, care and share, and let's prosper in life. Let's have peace in life. Let's grow in life. And unfortunately, a lot of people are just unwilling to grow. To start a quarrel is to release a flood. So abandon the dispute before it breaks out. Unfortunately, for some people, you can remove yourself and distance yourself. You can continue to give, take, care and share and want things to grow. But when there's enmeshments without boundaries, a lot of these people don't have boundaries, you'll find yourself entangled in situations, whether spiritual or physical, where the problems have become such a flood and the disputes have become so ridiculous, you just have to release yourself from that situation. Many of you have kept yourself in situations by way of conscience instead of rationale. And the floods have washed over you. A lot of you people are suffering trauma from staying in situations that you shouldn't have, because the person that you're with is just not going to resolve what the problem is. So consider. Do not bring hastily to court someone hastily to court. Otherwise, what will you do in the end when your neighbour brings you to shame? Don't put yourself in a situation where you're causing trouble. We have to self-introspect. It's no good running around trying to blame people, possibly out of our insecurities and lack of capabilities, or by jealousy, by being uncomfortable with something that you're seeing in the progress of somebody else's life. I'm Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist, Central Coast, New South Wales, Australia. Thank you for joining me, and bye for now.